Book 1, Chapter 12 of the Adventures of Gil Blas of Santillane by Alain René Le Sage, translated by Tobias Smollett. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Book 1, Chapter 12, A Disagreeable Interruption. Donna Mencia melted into tears as she finished this recital. I allowed her to give a free passage to her sighs. I even wept myself for company, so natural is it to be interested for the afflicted, and especially for a lovely female in distress. I was just going to ask her what she meant to do in the present conjuncture, and possibly she was going to consult me on the same subject if our conversation had not been interrupted. But we heard a great noise in the inn, which drew our attention whether we would or no. It was no less than the arrival of the corregidor, attended by two alguazils and their marshalmen. They came into the room where we were. A young gentleman in their train came first up to me and began taking to pieces the different articles of my dress. He had no occasion to examine them long. By St. James, exclaimed he, this is my identical doublet. It is the very thing, and as safely to be challenged as my horse. You may commit this spark on my recognizance. He is one of the gang who have an undiscovered retreat in this country. At this discourse, which gave me to understand my accuser to be the gentleman robbed, whose spoils, to my confusion, were exclusively my own, I was without a word to say for myself, looking one way and the other, and not knowing where to fix my eyes. The corregidor, whose office was suspicion, set me down for the culprit, and presuming on the lady for an accomplice, ordered us into separate custody. This magistrate was none of your stern gallows-preaching fellows. He had a jocular, epigrammatic sort of countenance. God knows if his heart lay in the right place for all that. As soon as I was committed, in came he with his pack. They knew their trade, and began by searching me. What a forfeit to these lords of the manor! At every handful of pistoles, what little eyes did I see them make! The corregidor was absolutely out of his wits. It was the best stroke within the memory of justice. My pretty lad, said his worship with a softened tone, we only do our duty, but do not you tremble for your bones before the time. You will not be broken on the wheel if you do not deserve it. These bloodsuckers were emptying my pockets all the time with their cursed palaver, and took from me what their betters of the shades below had the decency to leave, my uncle's 40 ducats. They stuck at nothing. Their staunch fingers with slow but certain scent routed me out from top to toe. They whisked me round and stripped me, even to the shame of modesty, for fear some sneaking portrait of the king should slink between my shirt and skin. When they could sift me no further, the corregidor thought it time to begin his examination. I told a plain tale, my deposition was taken down, and the sequel was that he carried in his train his bloodhounds and my little property, leaving me to toss without a rag upon a beggarly wisp of straw. Oh, the miseries of human life, groaned I, when I found myself in this merciless and solitary condition. Our adventures here are whimsical and out of all time and tune. From my first outset from Oviedo, I had got into a pleasant round of difficulties. Hardly had I worked myself out of one danger before I soused into another. Coming into town here, how could I expect the honour of the corregidor's acquaintance? While thus communing with my own thoughts, I got once more into the cursed doublet and the rest of the paraphernalia which had got me into such a scrape. Then plucking up a little courage, never mind, Gil Blas, thought I, do not be chicken-hearted. What is a prison above ground, after so brimstone a snuffle as thou hast had of the regions below? But, alas, I hallo before I am out of the wood. I am in more experienced hands than those of Leonardo and Domingo. My key will not open this grate. I might well say so, for a prisoner without money is like a bird with its wings clipped. One must be in full feather to flutter out of distance from these jail-birds. But we left a partridge and a young rabbit on the spit. How they got off I know not. but my supper was a bit of sallow complexioned bread, with a pitcher of water to render it amenable to mastication, and thus was I destined to bite the bridle in my dungeon. A fortnight was pretty well without seeing a soul but my keeper, who had orders that I should want for nothing in the bread and water way. Whenever he made his appearance, I was inclined to be sociable and to parley a little to get rid of the blue devils, but this majestic minister was above reply. He was mum. He scarcely trusted his eyes, but to see that I did not slip by him. On the 16th day, the corregidor strutted in to this tune: "You are a lucky fellow. I have news for you. The lady is packed off for Burgos. She came under my examination before her departure, and her answers went to your exculpation. You will be at large this very day if your carrier from Peñaflor to Cacabelos agrees in the same tale. He is now in Astorga. I have sent for him and expect him here. If he confirms the story of the torture, you are your own master." At these words I was ready to jump out of my skin for joy. The business was settled. I thanked the magistrate for the abridgment of justice with which he had deigned to favour me, and was getting to the fag end of my compliment when the muleteer arrived with an attendant before and behind. I knew the fellow's face, but he, having as a matter of course sold my cloak bag with the contents from a deep-rooted affection to the money which the sale had brought, swore lustily that he had no acquaintance with me, and had never seen me in the whole course of his life. "Oh, you villain!" exclaimed I, "go down on your knees and own that you have sold my clothes." "Prithee, have some regard to truth. Look in my face. Am not I one of those shallow young fellows whom you had the wit to threaten with the rack in the corporate town of Cacabelos?" The muleteer turned upon his toe, and protested he had not the honour of my acquaintance. As he persisted in his disavowal, I was recommitted for further examination. Patience once more! It was only reducing feasts and fasts to the level of bread and water, and regaling the only sense I had the means of using with the sight of my tongue-tied warden. But when I reflected how little innocence would avail to extricate me from the clutches of the law, the thought was death. I panted for my subterraneous paradise. "Take it for all in all," said I, "there were fewer grievances than in this dungeon. I was hail fellow well met with the banditti. I bandied about my jokes with the best of them, and lived on the sweet hope of an escape, whereas my innocence here will only be a passport to the galleys." End of Book 1, Chapter 12.